Okay, so in the first lesson, the idea is to build a form with an input field, and later on in the app, when we highlight the input field, that's when the Datepicker will pop up. But initially, we're just building everything statically. So we build that form, we build the Datepicker, we style it, and then we add functionality. But in this lesson, we're just going to be just creating the input field, the form around it, a button, and style it. So let's just get right into it. So in our editor, we create an index.html and we create a basic skeleton. We can rename it to Datepicker tutorial, and in the body field we're going to start with a container div. I will borrow a couple of phrases from Bootstrap, but I will not be relying on Bootstrap for styling. It's just a nomenclature. Inside this container we're going to have a form. We will not submit this form anywhere, so we don't need any actions, but we will need an ID, and the ID will be just my form. Right, in this one we will need a div with the class of form group. Again, this is from Bootstrap 2, and here we have a label, and this label will be for the only input field we will have, which will be called my date, and a bit of text. Select the date. Right, now it's the input field. It's going to have a class of Datepicker input, and it will have an ID of my date, so that way we connect the label and the input, and we keep it text class, because if we change it to date we would get the browser's default Datepicker, and that would kind of invalidate the whole point of this tutorial. And also we want the autocomplete off, so we don't have any random stuff showing up there. Yeah, and then we just need a button, a very simple button with the ID of submit and text of submit. Right, so that's all good. We can actually go live with it. Opened up in my other screen. Let's put it here, and we're going to minimize this tutorial. Let me a little bit increase the font size here, also increase the zoom so you see it better. And now let's get to the styling. We'll create a styles.css file, and we are going to import it. Styles CSS, and yeah, let's just do a couple of styles here. I'm going to start with some general defaults. We're going to remove some browser defaults after and before. We don't want any default margins, and we don't want any default padding. Right, then HTML we're going to set the rem to 1 rem to 10 pixel. This is the trick how we do it, because the default font size is 16 pixel and 62.5% of 16 pixel is 10 pixel. Now we also need the font family, and we will be using Roboto, but feel free to use any other font family that you like. As a fallback, we're going to use sans serif, and let's just go and look for that import on Google Fonts. Here we go, and we're going to import the regular one, this one 400. Select this entire import link here and put it above the styles CSS style sheet. Right, so we have imported this, and then we also do a WebKit text size adjust 100%. Right, now regarding the body, we're going to set the box sizing to border box, and that's it for the defaults. Not much has changed. The Roboto has been applied. I can see that already. Do I need to a little bit maybe zoom in more to see, make it more visible? We'll see once all the styling is in place. Let's just see what we have here. So we've got the container here. So the container class needs a bit of margin. Needs a bit of margin on top, which is like probably 2 rem is enough. Maybe, well, we'll see how it works out. And we'll center it in the middle. Padding wise, we're going to go with 4 rem and 2 rem on the sides. We're going to go with width just 50%. We're not going to make it super responsive. That's really not the point. We just really want to make it just look okay. That's more than enough for now. And also let's give a bit of a curve on the edges. Border radius, it's gonna get 3 pixels. Obviously it's not visible because we don't have any border, but we're gonna add a nice box shadow with the following parameters and a bit of blur, and the color will be a shade of black. More specifically, opacity with 26. So that looks better in terms of the container. Now what's our next unit is the form. The form itself won't have any styling, however the form group will, just very minimal, just a bit of margin bottom. To separate the button from the input unit. Our next unit is the label. Now what we're going to do is We're not going to use its ID or its class, it doesn't have any, so we're just simply going to say form group and the immediate label element. And we don't want everything in one line, so we're going to display it as block. We need a bit of a margin at the bottom, about 5 pixels. We don't need to use rems here because pixels are just very tiny, very small. So pixels and rems pretty much amount to the same. Going to change the color a little bit, and we're going to change it to, I think, yeah, 555 should be okay. So it's not as dark, a little bit blurred. Font size will be reduced a little bit. Sorry, increased, because I think the default was probably 10. Just because it's zoomed in, it's confusing me a little bit. But if we just use wrong window, if we just use normal zoom here, then it looks okay. I just want you to see everything, so I'm going to zoom in. It's going to look a little bit distorted. And we also want the font weight bold. So this should look okay on a normal scale. Yeah. Next up is our input, and we're going to style it by grabbing the class. And we're going to set its width to 100%. It's going to have a fixed height of 2.5 rem. It's going to have a little border, 2 pixel, solid. And the color we are going to give it is what's a nice color? Let me see, something that's a bit lighter than the label. Do a border radius 3 pixel. Again, let me just zoom back out how it looks. It looks okay, however it also looks a little bit too dark. Let me try this. Yeah, that looks much better. And let's also give it some padding, not much, just 2 pixels. Right, what else is here? Just the submit button. We only have one button, but we can just grab its ID, although it's never a good idea to style an individual unit, but for now, for this application, it's just fine. Well, the start is we don't want any border, but we want border radius, our usual 3 pixel unit, and we want nice background color. Now for background colors, I use this site, and I've already eyed a nice color, this butterfly blue. So I'm going to grab this one here, paste it here. Let me see how it looks now. That's okay. It needs a bit of padding so it's better visible and easily clickable. It's going to be 1 rem. The font size needs to be increased. Let's try 1.4. We could go maybe 1.6 as well. And the color can be, I don't like using plain white. I rather go for something called milk white. It has a little shade to it that I like. I also give this to the body. Background color. Right, let me see how it looks. And we're going to make it also bold. And we want to, text transform. Where are you? Here. And it's going to be capitalized, right? So I think this is the 100% zoom. That's not what I want to zoom. I want to zoom this window. So I'm going to zoom in here. So now you can see it. Obviously, if you're not zooming in, it's going to look a little bit different for you. But that's basically it. So we've got our form. It's nicely styled. We've got a button, and the next job is to create the Datepicker skeleton. Again, initially we're just gonna statically display it inside a div, style it, and then later on we're gonna add the functionality. So I see you in the next lesson.